Shalom. Thanks for joining me. Um, there's certain words that will conjure up different ideas in my mind when I think about it. And somehow cornbread came into my mind. And I have a lot of, I guess, connections to cornbread. Cornbread, when I grew up, was a staple in our household. And a lot of years during my early childhood, we lived with my grandmother. And my grandmother made cornbread from scratch. Cornbread could be for breakfast because my grandfather would take, she used to use Alaga syrup. It's a really thick syrup, Alaga, and it stood for Alabama, Georgia syrup. Okay, and it came in a jar with a kind of the label was mostly red. And to me, it was like the best syrup in the world because it was thick and it was sweet. And so he would take a saucer and he would pour this Alaga syrup in the saucer. And then he would take some soft butter. And we always kept the butter out on the table in a butter dish. So he would drop some of that in it. And then he would take a fork and kind of stir it up. Now, it wouldn't blend up to be a smooth mixture, but it'd be a mixture where you got all these little dots of butter in the syrup. And then he would take some hot cornbread and dip it in there. And you're talking about some good eating stuff. It was good. So Grandma would make hers from scratch. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Grandmama always kept lard. And Grandmama kept at least 25. She would buy flour in the 50-pound cans. She would buy lard maybe in 25-pound cans. We didn't know nothing about Torah, even though there was plenty Bibles. Grandmama went to church every Sunday, to the Primitive Baptist church, and Grandpapa went to the Methodist church, and they were both about 3 blocks away. But when they were brought up in Alabama, there was one church in the community that they shared. And so the Baptists had it every other Sunday, and then the Methodists had it on the other Sundays. And everybody attended every Sunday. So when you go into church, you get a Baptist sermon this week, a Methodist sermon the next week. But anyway, when they got to Detroit, and they just went to the churches at the denominations that they liked. Now, my mama, she cooked cornbread all the time too, but she didn't take the time to make it from scratch. My mama worked, and she worked at the telephone company, and she worked in many other kinds of jobs, and so that she used Jiffy Mix. Okay, now Jiffy Mix, if anybody's read the label on there, it's got lard in it. Okay, and I used to use Jiffy Mix before I came to understanding that we're not supposed to be eating swine or any kind of pork. But anyway, cornbread was a part of my growing up. And my grandmother, the way that she would like to eat it, she would take, she had a jar, no, it was a mug. It was a mug, it was a glass mug, and maybe it was like 16 ounces or something like that. And she would fill it probably about halfway to 3/4 of the way up with buttermilk. Then she would drop some chunks of hot cornbread down in that buttermilk. I couldn't eat that now if I wanted to. Okay. When I was small, I would get up on Grandmama's lap because Grandmama was, I think Grandmama was like 5'10" or something like that, and she was a broad woman. And when she sat down, she had a big lap. Okay. And I would get up on her lap, and she and I would share that buttermilk and hot cornbread. She dipped a spoon in it, and she'd have something to dip it in and then put it in my mouth. And I look back on those times as, memories. You can see I'm smiling now. I'm talking about them. And another thing about cornbread, a saying, there used to be a lot of sayings when I was growing up that people, I guess people now would say, old folks would say. And if somebody would ask you, how old are you? I'm old enough to eat cornbread without getting choked. Anybody heard that one? Okay. So, and then I thought about my uncle. This is my one of my mom's. No, this is my mother's youngest brother. Okay, and he showed us how to make like a molding dough out of cornbread. Okay. Yes, I did grow up in a poor neighborhood. Okay. Now, silly putty was out and we had some silly putty. Okay. But to make it out of cornbread was just interesting. Okay. But you couldn't make too much of it because grandma gonna start hollering about what y'all doing with my cornbread in there. Okay. So what you do is you take the cornbread and you put a little water in it, and then you just kind of pack it and mold it in your hand and roll it around or whatever like that. And then it would make a kind of, um, I guess, like a molding clay. And so you could make little things out of it. And so we would do that to kind of entertain ourselves. So if you got some cornbread stories, put them in the comments. Thank you for listening. And remember, like and share. Shalom.